Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Sunday Night Live, your favorite automotive show where we talk about the issues that affect the customer experience at your store, whether it's the front of the store, the back of the store, or somewhere in the middle. The better the experience, the more they come back to you for what they need when they need it. And I try to bring on different parts of automotive. A lot of it's fixed ops related, some of it's sales related. But I met this gentleman, Mike Shell, the other day, and I looked at what he was about. I said to myself, this would be a really cool topic because it's the car business, but a little different part of the car business. And there are definitely some process things here that Mike is very familiar with that could benefit you at your dealerships. So without any further ado, welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here, Paul. Thank you.
I would love for you to share with our audience, both the live ones and the ones that will be watching afterwards on the replay. Tell us your background. Don't go past fifth grade because then it gets too long. But tell us kind of how you got into the business, how long, some of the things you've done, things like that.
Yeah, my dad was a hot rod guy in Orange County, California back in the 50s and 60s. And he showed me how to wrench on cars. We also did motocross too. So, I was wrenching on my own bikes at the same time. And then right out of high school, I went to work for IBM as an engineer, brought some of that knowledge of electronics and mechanics with me to IBM. And at IBM, that's when in the late 80s, I discovered the internet, even before, there were search engines like Google.
The internet. And we all thought it was going to be a passing fad.
Yeah.
I remember guys at the dealership, when the first Priceline leads came in on the fax machine, they were all shaking their head like, all this internet crap's going to go away. We'll just ride it off for a little bit. Well, it never really went away. It just got more and more involved. So now I'd venture to say 99.9 something percent of people that do any kind of business do it online, and especially in the car business. So auctions are an interesting animal, because they make a lot of money and you really have no inventory. I mean, talk about a business model, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And, the online collectible car industry is unique because you have to have industry experts that, like on our team, they spent a lifetime getting their knowledge to be able to share to our clients. And that's really a lot of it is having people that have the industry knowledge to make sure that, the clients that do submit their cars to be auctioned off, they got the right experience, they got the right description, the right pictures, pedigree, they manage the customer's expectations. A lot of people want too much for their car. A lot of people, need to understand that, you have to manage those expectations before the auction goes live.
Are you suggesting a customer would want more money for their car than it's worth in the car business?
Especially in the collectible car industry, yes.
Yeah. What's really cool about the collectible car business is that it's such a broad spectrum. I mean, you could have vintage collectible cars in the low thousands to cars that are in the millions of dollars, depending on which auction. Now, there are different auctions that specialize in different vehicles, correct?
Yes, there's two main competitors out there, and that's Bring a Trailer and Cars and Bids. Bring a Trailer, full spectrum from classics to current models, and then the Cars and Bids, they're basically in just modern collectible cars. So Bring a Trailer does full spectrum. Cars and Bids is just modern cars. Nothing older than 1980.
Older than 1980?
Nothing older. Yeah.
Nothing older. Now, so how long has that agency been around?
Cars and Bids has been live. They just had this last week their 3rd-year anniversary.
Okay. And the Bring a Trailer?
They're at about 5.5 years.
And they did what, like a billion and change?
$1.4 billion last year. 30,000 auctions. Bring a Trailer did.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah, and they curate every submission. So they only accept half of the vehicles that are submitted.
So what's some of the criteria that they look at?
The vehicle needs to be unique. The documentation needs to line up. Obviously, VIN numbers. It's good to have the manufacturer sticker with it so people understand the options that came with it from the factory. The pictures have to be well done, video well done, the description very well done, and the price has to be set with the reserve that's correct or no reserve.
And is there a specific no sell number per auction, or like there are with some of the car dealer auctions?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Once it reaches a reserve, sky's the limit.
So the merchandising is critical. The cataloging of the cars, the pictures, the pedigree, all of that. How long is that whole process?
That can take 2 to 3 days from submission before it goes live. The auction is 7 days live, so they run 7 days. But the competition is having some issues with the submissions because it says 2 days on the website, and some people have complained they waited up to 2 weeks to have it.
Wow. And these auctions, now we're talking about live auctions and we're talking about online auctions.
Yeah, we're talking about online auctions.
Online auctions.
Yeah, live auctions are a completely different setup.
Okay, so the online auctions, the auction house handles a lot of the clerical stuff. Let's say you've got a car you want to bring to the auction. You submit it with all of the details that you just mentioned. They decide whether or not they're going to take your car. Is the appraisal done in person or is the appraisal done some other way?
It's done on completely 100% online.
Wow.
Yes.
And we're talking about some very expensive cars here.
Correct. Bring a Trailer did 9 cars last year over $1 million. 3 of them were $2 million plus.
And these were valued not in person.
Not in person.
Dealers, takeaway number 1. You don't need to be there. Right? If you have the skill set, the expertise, you ask the right questions, you look for the right documentation, you don't need to be there. If these guys are selling cars that expensive, there's no reason why you have to be there. Let me get to a couple of comments here. Starting us off, Larry Feldman, my good friend. We had dinner the other night in Milford, Connecticut. He was doing training at a dealership in the area. Always great to see you, Larry. Russell B. Hill, good evening, everyone. And then it stopped. Oh, he said, let's go and grow. Nathan Williams, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And he says, exactly. After all, the auction thing works for eBay, doesn't it? Well, that's a whole different animal altogether, right? Because when you go to some of these auctions, the risk factor, can I say it's eliminated or is it largely eliminated?
Well, when you go to Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bits, like I said, they curate all their inventory. So, that's the vital part about it. They do their research. They make sure the car lines up to what they want to have on their website. It meets the criteria before it goes live. Where eBay, you pay the fee and you can list your car. So there is a difference.
And I would say eBay, from my experience with it, I've sold a lot of cars on eBay, shipped cars all over. You don't always have a good feeling in your gut when you're dealing with somebody in that space. A lot of scams.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad actors online. Bring a Trailer experience, Cars and Bits experience, and you have to be prepared for that. Movarna's launching the first quarter of 2025, so we've had the time to make sure that we'll be able to manage those bad actors from day one, where these platforms had to learn as they grew. So, that gives us a competitive advantage from day one.
Right. You can learn from the people that did it before you.
That is correct. And we learned a lot.
So how did this whole thing come about? I mean, what inspired you to go in this direction?
I looked at the industry, I looked at the market, I looked at what the competitors were missing as far as customer service level, employee training. And so we just came up with a plan with Movarna to be a real brand. Cars and Bids, Bring a Trailer. That's not necessarily a brand name.
Yeah.
We want Movarna to be a global brand name. And then we put in the people and the processes to train the employees. Just like me and you talked yesterday about, you want to buy a nice set of shoes.
Yeah.
You want the person to be knowledgeable about those shoes, or you walk. And I think that's happened a lot online. The employees aren't real knowledgeable about the cars that they're curating, and that gives people a bad gut feeling, and a lot of times they'll back out of the process.
Yeah, you need a certain comfort factor for sure,
And this is their baby. This is different than an online, you're selling just a widget or a SaaS product.
Right.
The average car on Bring a Trailer last year was 54,000. These are people's babies. They have emotional attachments to them. You've got to handle them with care, and you've got to be prepared and have the knowledge of how to do that.
And is the auction going to be full turn and a full tilt that you arrange for transportation and everything?
Yeah. So at the end, all auctions are pretty much the same. At the end of when the buyer wins the bid, the two parties are introduced together, and then they arrange the title transfer and the money transfer, and then we'll offer pickup and delivery.
And then there are typically fees at auctions, right? What are some of the likely fees that people see at some of these auctions?
The seller fees are for Bring a Trailer is $99 up to $3,500. There's 3 tiers, where Cars and Bids is free to submit a car. Buyer's fees, it's 5% for Bring a Trailer buyer fee, and that's capped at $7,500. And then for Bring a Trailer, it's 4.5%. That's capped at $4,500.
So the average auction, you said $55,000 or $54,000?
Yeah, Bring a Trailer is at $54,000 per auction average, and then Cars and Bids is just under $30,000. So almost half of what Bring a Trailer is.
Now, do people arrange for mechanical inspections?
Yes, that is a thing that does happen, and we'll have a lot of strategic partnerships with local mechanic shops that specializes in a lot of these cars, and for a fee, we'll have the car inspected, and that gives the buyer some confidence when they go to purchase the vehicle that it's been inspected and a qualified, certified mechanic for that type of vehicle. You don't take a Porsche to a Chevy store, you take it to a Porsche store or a Porsche mechanic, and it's been certified, and that gives a lot of confidence to the buyer.
Now, your auction, you're planning on doing online and locations, or how's that going to roll out?
Movarna is going to separate ourselves from the competition in many ways, but one of the ways we're going to do it, we are building in-house instead of mobile employees, so that we can in-house train employees and we can manage the employees in-house. That way, when we do have customer issues, they can get handled in a very timely manner. When everybody's spread out all over the country, it's hard to have everybody on the same page. But we're also going to change that experience. Also, we'll have vehicles there in our showroom downstairs, and that will be somewhat of an experience center. We want to show our clients that we're collectors too, that we own and collect cars, and they can come and visit us and see the experience. If we have a client with $1 million car, we'll have the car here in-house, and we'll fly the new buyer in to take delivery here in Scottsdale.
Wow, that sounds like a really cool way to do it.
And they can meet the team, the people that helped them out to get that experience. And if they can't drive the car home, they live in New York, we'll fly them back and ship it.
Huh. So the people that put the numbers on the cars, those have to be pretty specialized people because you're looking at such a broad spectrum.
Yeah, the auction specialists are highly trained. They do a lot of research on the internet. They take all the documentation, all the pictures. We do send people out to take pictures for a fee and video, and we do write the description for the client. So most of that stuff's available online, but when you get into specialty cars, and if it's a 60s Chevelle, 69 Chevelle rare model SS, then those cars got to be researched a lot before it goes live, because VIN numbers can be missing, matching numbers aren't correct, description
Right.
correct, and so when the buyer takes delivery, it's not what they expected, and that does happen quite a bit. And we've got the industry experts on our team as co-founders, and they are the best out there.
Everything's got to match. The VIN numbers got to match. The tags got to match. The engine numbers got to match. All that.
Yes. Yeah. All the previous records, previous owners need a match. All that.
Now, is that part of the pre-auction preparation?
It is. Yeah, we get all that put together before we put the vehicle live.
What? So, other than a place like eBay, not everybody accepts every car, correct?
That's correct. Like I said, the main competitor is Bring a Trailer. They're doing about 120, 115 a day now on auctions. They've got 935 cars on there this morning live. So they're doing about 115, 120. The next competitor is Cars and Bids. They're doing 25 to 20. So Bring a Trailer. Cars and Bids is doing about 20 to 25 cars a day. And then the other two competitors that are out there is Collecting Cars, and then Car and Classic. And those are European businesses. They're not U.S. businesses. They're over in Europe. So there's no real other competitors. And there's a lot that do 4 or 5 a day, like Haggerty and Somo. But the leader is Bring a Trailer. That's the model we're modeling ourselves out of, and then improving on that model.
And they are all online, did you say?
100%.
Well, that should give you a nice opportunity then.
Yeah, again, it's a very niche industry, and you've got to have all the elements together. There's a dozen of recent companies that some of them quite large, like Auto Trader, have tried and failed to break into this market. They just never got the secret sauce right.
So, needless to say, you have a pretty sizable investment, and your talent pool. I don't know. Are there a lot of these people just kind of sitting around that you can pull from?
There is. There's quite a bit that have had the experience online in auctions, but again, it's very refined niche. So you have to make sure that you screen those employees properly to make sure that you hire the correct employees. Just like any business, that anybody that is listening right now knows that you've got to hire quality employees and have an ongoing process to train those employees.
And so it's a global market, but how often do cars come in from overseas or over the border?
There's a lot of strategic partnerships that Bring a Trailer has that bring in cars from overseas. Avant-Garde is here in Scottsdale now. A gentleman named Matt Crandall owns it. They're doing 25 to 30 cars a month on Bring a Trailer, and they get 4 or 5 a week from overseas. The cars are shipped to them, and they clean the cars up, take the pictures, take the video, write the description, inspect the cars before they go live, and they just hand that to Bring a Trailer.
Are most of these cars collectible cars that people don't drive, or are there a lot of drivers as well?
They're all collectible cars, but I know a lot of people that have 200, 300 car collection, and they drive every car. So collectors doesn't mean you just keep it just to look at it. A lot of these collectors, they drive everything that they have in their collection.
Now, the safety standards and specs like that, European car, Canadian car, U.S. cars, they're all a little bit different. How does that play into any of this, or does it even?
It doesn't. You just have to let the buyer understand what they're buying. It's their choice to bid on it once they have all the information.
Is a car that's overseas worth any more or less, or it just depends really on the car itself?
What you do find is that you can get cars overseas for less money.
Why is that?
It's just the market's different over there. In the U.S., it's exploded ever since the pandemic, and so car prices have been driven up. If you look at the overall market, in the U.S. alone, there's 51 million collectible cars. That means 16% of the U.S. population owns a collectible car, either in their driveway or their garage or their barn. A lot of people just don't even know it. If you look at 30,000 auctions done by Bring a Trailer, a lot of people have not submitted their car to Bring a Trailer or Cars and Bids or anybody. They just don't realize the car is rare and it could be collectible. There's 15 million individual car collectors in the U.S. So it's a pretty big market of potential buyers. Right now, Bring a Trailer has 1.2 million registered users and almost 600,000 registered bidders.
Wow.
So Matt Crandall submits a car, he gets up to 30,000 eyeballs just in those 7 days on that one vehicle. And it's people that are generally interested in looking to buy that car.
These are not tire kickers, so to speak.
They're not tire kickers. It's a growing industry. And one of the reasons is in the last 10 years, collectible vehicles have appreciated 185%, more than watches, wine, art, gold, real estate. Now, there's some argument, there's a lot of cars that didn't appreciate. And a lot of it is because they've gone to some of these live auctions and they've gone online and they paid way too much for it 5, 6, 7 years ago. And the market goes up and down, it fluctuates. And, depending on when they go to resell it, it could be worth less than what they originally paid for it. But generally speaking, let's just take an example, a 79 turbo 911. You could have bought that car 10 years ago for 50 to 70,000. Those cars are going more than double that at this point.
Wow, I'd say that was a good investment, whoever bought that.
Yeah. And that's happening with a lot of vehicles.
How about a 74 De Tomaso Pantera?
Yeah. You want to submit it?
No, that's been my favorite car for ever since I can remember.
Yeah.
Just something about that. Nathan has a state comment here. He says, in other words, info booths set up with information about this because people who come to car shows could use this information.
Yeah, I can explain a little bit. We've got, and I'm not going to talk about our founders at this point because, we're going to do a PR release here in the coming months, and we just want that PR release to be very effective. But we do have industry leaders that own a dealership group here in the U.S., and then we have an industry leader that owns a dealership group in Canada. Both are co-founders. Both have a bunch of dealership industry that spans 3 decades for each one of them. And so, we brought in these people to build Movarna to be the next Bring a Trailer. And so we'll be at all the car shows. We'll be at all the dealer shows. We'll be at every event we can possibly get to, because I think what's going to come down to, with 50 million collectible cars out there, it's really about educating the individuals out there about the fact that they do have a collectible car, and there is a source like Movarna to submit their car, pay a small fee, $99 to list it, and generally get a lot more for their car. The average car that gets submitted on Bring a Trailer gets up to 15% more than if it was on Auto Trader. If it's a collect,
Wow.
yeah. So that the platforms do work, and that's not the case with everybody, but the average car that you take off of Auto Trader that is a collectible vehicle will get more and bring a trailer, because that's where the audience is. There's been a lot of new players coming into this space, and they don't know who their audience is, and so they've struggled because of that. We know who our audience is. We have classic car appraisers on our team and as co-founders that have, they've got 60 years experience between the two of them, and have sold hundreds of millions of dollars worth of collectible cars in their career. So they've got a very vast experience that takes a lifetime to learn. And that's really vital when somebody's submitting their baby to you that they've owned for 15, 20 years, and they want to make sure that baby is in good hands. And the same with the buyer. When they buy it, they want to understand that they're getting what you sold them, what you told them it was, how you described it, the pictures and everything. So, you've got to have the people and the processes in place to ensure both parties, the seller and buyer, trust you and are comfortable with the process. And then you need to deliver that very high level of customer service. And that's specifically why we're going to have our employees in-house and not remote. There's been some studies out there that remote employees are 20% less effective than in-house employees. And I would say a lot more when you got a big ticket item.
Right. And when your car goes through an auction, the valuation is going to be a lot more on target, right? Because what I see in the lower end collectibles, and I don't even know if they're collectibles, we'll just call them vintage cars, okay? And people put these cars online for just stupid money. We have a saying in the car business: throw them up against the ceiling and see what sticks, and then you peel them down, right?
Yeah.
So I see cars that people put in for $75,000 on Marketplace or someplace like that, and then you look 2 weeks later and you see the same car, it's slashed. Now they're at $60,000.
We bring up a good point, Paul. The reason we do curating is we manage their expectations from the very beginning. You work together to set the reserve, but we're not going to set the reserve so high that it doesn't have a sell through. It doesn't have a hammer price and somebody buys the vehicle. We're going to work with the seller to set that reserve accurately so that the vehicle can get bids on, get past the reserve, and then hopefully people really like it and you get in a bidding war, and it goes for more than anybody ever thought. And that does happen. And one of the big trends now with someone like Bring a Trailer, they have so many eyeballs. Cars go on there all the time now with no reserve, because they know that they're going to get more money for the car, because no reserve is more attractive. People think they're going to steal it, but when they get on there, there's 20,000 people on there, and you got 400 or 500 bidders on there, and that does happen. The price goes higher than you thought, but now you're emotionally attached, and you want that car.
I would be really scared with no reserve, man. I'm not going to lie. I would be really scared. But to your point, if you've got 500 bidders and they all know the caliber of the cars that are coming through your auction.
Yes, exactly. And this is a big opportunity, I think, for dealers. We're going to put out a dealer program that we can give to dealers, and they can advertise. They take in collectible cars. We don't want to be a dumping ground alternative for them over Manheim,
Right?
But if they've got a collectible car that they want to submit, they might get a lot more instead of running it through Manheim or any other auction out there, putting it on our platform, and they can feel a little more comfortable taking those kind of trade-ins, knowing they could call us up and we could have it somewhat appraised.
And the appraisal piece, as you said, you're dealing with somebody's baby, and people don't always know what the true values are. And it's kind of like meeting with the realtor, right? There's people think their house is worth a lot of money. But when you run comps in the real estate business, it's a little different, because how many comps do you have on certain really rare collectible cars?
Well, it's interesting too. The submission fee for Bring a Trailer is 3 tiers, and the basic tier is $99. The next tier up, which they send somebody out to take photos, is only $420. The third tier is white glove service with no price. They want you to call for price. I know what that price is. It's $3,500 and up. So if you do have an expensive vehicle, you do got to pay for it, for that appraisal. You do got to pay for that expert writing of the description and the pictures being taken correctly, even the vehicle inspected.
I don't know this, so I'm going to ask. I'm sure there's a percentage of your clientele, when I say your clientele in the auction world, that goes to these specialty auctions that are repeat, right? That know the auction house, that know the types of cars that go through, and they feel comfortable and confident that they're going to get what they want to, what they're looking for. Is there a lot of repeat purchase or trading between dealers?
In the yeah, when you get to the live auctions, the cars are there for a week. They're on consignment for a week. The live auctions last 5 to 7 minutes, but you get the time to preview those cars certain days during the week, where you can spend a lot of time even talking to the owner of the car at the live event. So you get a lot of time to settle in before it does go live, but you get minutes to bid. And so, that's the difference between an online and a live auction. Is an online, it's 7 days long. You can really take your time, do your research, talk to people, look at other vehicles in the same price range to make sure you want to continue to bid on the vehicle. So, you can do that in the convenience of sitting on your couch.
Do people primarily go to auctions, or are there auctions that reach out to specific collectors to try to generate business?
Well, we have one of the best in the world in our team, and she did it for both of them together for over 20 years. And, it's a relationship business, and they have relationships with these individuals. And, they leverage those relationships to get the consignments for these live events. And there's new people coming in all the time. One interesting fact, with 15 million collectors out there, it's about a 10% churn on any collectible industry, whether you're collecting stamps, coins, or cars.
Yeah.
So there's 150, there's 15 million people. There's 1.5 million people going in and out of that market every year. So there is people coming in every year. Let's just say 1.5 million new collectors coming into the industry every year that don't know the processes. So they need to be educated. They've never been to a live auction. They don't know how the online auction works. But, for the first time last year, online auctions surpassed live auctions in total revenues.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's where we are today, all right? Everything's online.
If it can be done in the right way, that's one of the differentiators over Movarna. I've repeated it before, is our service level. Be able to have, quick, accurate answers on a timely manner, trained employees, and just an overall better user experience of the website. Also, we just want everything to be easy.
It makes such a difference, right? So if you have these buyers that have relationships, that's really their book of business, right? They may have helped those collectors with some of those cars, or they may just be familiar with what their collections are.
Yeah. There's a very interesting stat. 30% of the revenue on Bring a Trailer, 30% of $1.4 billion is, it's going to be right in that almost, $400 million range. Is orchestrated by 1% of the listers.
Wow.
Yes. So that's Matt Crandall at Avant Garde, doing 30 a month. There's a lot of, collectible car dealerships out there that sell just collectible cars, from classics to modern, and they use Bring a Trailer as a platform to sell those cars, and because they get more money than if they just waited 3 months for it to sell with walk-in traffic and advertised traffic or their own online platforms. They just don't get the eyeballs.
Are there a lot of bar finds? You see the barn finds? You see these things every once in a while. You see a picture posted that somebody found some rare exotic car in a barn somewhere covered in dust.
Yeah, there's hidden gems out there all the time. We have actually a marketing strategy to find those, and we've got a very interesting person that's going to be driving around mid-America asking people where the next barn finds are.
I spend a lot of time on the road. I'm in and out of dealerships every day, and I cover a very large territory. And there are some really rural places that I drive through, and I see some really interesting cars, either in somebody's driveway or there's a barn door that's open. I see the car sitting there, or just on the yard somewhere.
That goes back to the stat I said. There's 16% of people in America have a collectible car in their driveway. Just most don't know it.
And they just don't know it.
They just don't know.
I used to run. I've used to run repair shops, and I remember there was a couple that my parents met. They had a restaurant in the Caribbean, and they met these folks on the docks. And far be it from my parents not to have strangers bring stuff home for the family, right?
Exactly.
So I met these people. They called me up and said, "Hey, I met your parents in St. Martin, and they sent the care package for you kids. Would you like to come over and pick it up?" I did. I hung out with them for a little while. And I got a phone call, shortly thereafter. And this lady, talk about not knowing what you have. She calls me up and she says, it's good that I met you because you're the only one I know in the car business. She says, I have this old car I'd like to get rid of. I called the junkyard, but they want to charge me $150 to come pick it up. I really don't want to pay for it. We've put a lot of money into this car, but I really don't want to pay somebody to take it away. So I said, so sure, what kind of car is it anyway? She says, it's a Mustang. I said, yeah, I could probably help you with that. I could help you with that. It turns out, so she says it's a Mustang. She says, I don't know if it's going to start or not, so you might want to bring, a jumper pack or, some way to jumpstart the car. So I pull into the driveway, and I pull open the garage door, and there's a dark green 66 Mustang with GT wheels all the way around sitting there. And I'm looking, I'm in total disbelief. And I jumpstart the car and I hear a tapping noise. It ended up having a broken push rod. So it had a tapping noise out of one cylinder. When we go inside, she starts telling me her kid went away to school. She spent all this money on it, all the different things. And so now I'm thinking she's going to hit me up for the money. Like, no, I got the car for free.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So I can imagine some of these barn finds, people, to your point of people not knowing what they have. I'm sure that happens.
I'm a numbers guy, and a stat guy, and with 51 million collectible cars out there, you got the number one online auction, Bring a Trailer, doing 30,000 auctions last year. That's 0.07% of the potential market. There's an article, Haggerty a few years back wrote an article that the total value of the insurable collectible cars in the U.S. alone is over $1 trillion.
Wow.
So there's a big, large market. Look at CarMax. They own 2% of the legitimate $1 trillion used car market. Nobody owns 2% of the online collectible vehicle. And so that's why we we built Movarna because we see it. We see Mount Everest here, and we want to climb it, and we want it more than everybody else. And so that's why we have assembled the team we have of experts and industry leaders to make sure that we can get to the top of the mountain.
Well, I wish you will. I know you're going to have a lot of success with this, because just how you're putting this together between in-person facilities and online, and the training and the all the thought that went into it. Oh, hello, Michael Weldon, by the way. Interesting topic. As I restore vehicles, there you go.
Partnership right there.
So there's nothing quite like customer service. Customer service will either turn them on or turn them off in a split second.
Yes.
Right. And competition, the opportunity is so huge, it's not even funny. I mean, there's plenty. We're talking about a pie that we're cutting a sliver that we can barely see out of it. And there's so much more, right? And I learned something really cool recently. Okay, I don't know if you're familiar with the enterprise story, enterprise rental.
Yes.
So for some of the folks out there that might not be familiar with it, okay, a guy named Jack was going to go into the leasing business. He had 17 cars. Didn't quite work out the way he had hoped for. Then he decided to give it another go at it, and he was going to start a car rental business. Now do the math here for a minute. He's got 17 cars in a market that's already well dominated by major players, okay? But Jack's thing was, I don't care who's doing what, we're going to come in, we're going to offer a great experience. I'm going to employ college graduates. He's really going to put together a professional environment here. And he says, I'm going to take this market. I mean, that's a ballsy move on anybody's part. But right now, today, I forget the exact number, but I think they own anywhere from 70 to 80% of the rental business. And they came in as virtual unknowns in a market that was already well established. So for what you're talking about, what you guys are going to do, and what the opportunity is, wow, are you taking on investors?
Yes, we are. And it's all about, people and processes and managing those processes and managing those people. A lot of people fall short of just putting the process together and everybody runs amok. Everything's got to be managed, and the expectations have to be very high, and those have to be the KPIs and everything else have to be managed on a daily basis. And our competitors, they came into this industry before it was big. Bring a Trailer, their first year only did $1 million in business. That was 5 years ago. This year they'll exceed 1.5 billion. And so they've had to learn the process pretty quick, hire the people pretty quick. So, they had to go through a couple of years of bad reviews, bad customer experiences to learn. And so we do have a gift. We've been able to learn from those experiences, reading those customer reviews, and making sure that our platform is just like Michael Weldon just mentioned, ease of use. The processes have to be seamless. The customer experience has to be 2 thumbs up all the time. And if they call you, somebody needs to be able to pick up that is in America, that knows what they're talking about.
There you go.
And that has to happen from day one. You just don't ramp that up as you go. I want somebody to call our Scottsdale place at 2 a.m. from New York, and somebody picks up.
Yeah.
They may not be able to list their car, but they're going to at least say that they're there to help them with any questions they got.
Yeah.
I think
that's key.
Yeah, the highest level. When I worked for IBM my dad was an IBM executive in the 60s and 70s. IBM back then was all about customer service. That's how they got to how big they got. A lot of change now because of AI and Quad and a lot of things came in. But back then IBM was all about the customer, all about customer service and the processes. And so you learn from that. And we brought that knowledge over, and our co-founders, they're known for their service. They have very high level of customer service levels, and that's to have that customer centric user experience from day one is very vital, because we do not want to have bad reviews. We want to have, a lot of people nowadays, they buy, they sell based on reviews.
Yeah.
Key from the very beginning to have very good reviews. And if you don't have a good review, somebody's immediately fixing that bad review from your end, helping the customer understand, fixing the issue, and turning that frown upside down, so to speak, and improving that review to the point that it's hard for somebody to find really bad reviews. Now, you're not going to please everybody. Everybody knows that in the car business.
That's true.
2 or 3 people out of 100, they're just going to be out of their minds. You're not going to be able to fix that. But customers know that when they do read reviews. If you don't have a couple bad reviews, they just think you're making every one of them up.
Correct.
So you've got to have some bad reviews. But
what's interesting too is that you can have the best plans, but stuff can still go sideways at any given time. It's the mindset of the people behind the business in how to respond to something like that. And I'll give you an example. Take Lexus, for instance. Okay. When Lexus was coming out, a lot of people laughed. It's what? A $30,000, $35,000 Toyota? What are you, crazy? Are you nuts? Well, those people have obviously never driven a Lexus to think it's the same. It's not the same, right? But so here they come out with this wonderful car that people were blown away at what the pricing was from a Toyota, if you will. And pretty soon, right after they came out, they had a problem with their cars. And at that time, they had a decision to make. How are they going to deal with it? So they proactively sent technicians to people's homes, or they sent trucks to people's homes to pick those cars up, to take care of them, to fix the issue. They washed them, they filled the tank with gas, and they sent them back home. The one story that is probably legendary at this point for anyone familiar with Lexus is that they sent the technician on a plane to Alaska to go take care of a customer's car. And how they handled that particular thing, I think, was the moment that solidified them in the luxury space.
Well, there's a good example with Bob Parsons over at GoDaddy. When he first started, he was Joe Max Technologies. He invested all his money. It was $40 million. It was going under. He didn't know what to do. He changed the name to GoDaddy. Doxter was the leader of that industry. They owned 75% of the market. He was told not to go into that market. Changed the name to GoDaddy. Got Danica to do the Super Bowl commercial, and the rest is history. 3 years later, he owned 75% of the market through bold branding and extraordinary high level of customer service. That's how he beat the competition, and that's what it does take. And just to Michael's comment here, Michael Weldon's, you got to be able to know how to adapt to the market, and that's the key to a lot of dealerships' survival. Is there's ups and downs in the market, and you got to be able to pivot with those ups and downs, and you got to be prepared for them.
There are a lot of people that have some aged inventory today that they're not too happy with right now, because it represents a large loss for them. I always in that area, your first loss is your best one, right?
Yeah.
See, Nathan Williams says, and they want someone to pick up that is on site, not a call center. 100%. I mystery shop stores all the time, and you'd be surprised at what opportunities they're missing on a daily basis today, even when we know that there's a problem. And Nathan says, next thing you know, Movarna is going to have nationally aired television commercials during shows and streaming services. I'm sure you have a whole big plan ready to go.
That is correct.
Know your market and expect the unexpected. Just a couple other questions. So the inspections typically are outside agencies that do these, that are certified in that specific brand or type of car. Is there any plan at some point, and if it's a secret, I don't expect you to tell me, but to have some in-house, or is that just not, that doesn't make sense in a business? And that
makes sense for the business model because the market's too broad, too wide.
Okay.
The demographics are too wide, too broad. But what we will have, which is even better, I believe, is strategic partnerships with these service centers and dealerships, so that they do get the same level of service that Movarna offers with our vendors and our strategic partnerships. I think that's the key. They don't experience really good service with us and then bad service with the dealership, the independent service business that they do business with when they take it for the inspection. It has to all make sense, and we have to manage that level of service with our vendors and with our strategic partnerships.
You pretty much have to take them from beginning to end.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the key to success.
Market trends. Where are the auctions heading as far as cars or anything particular?
Well, we believe it's heading online. That's why we're getting into the online space. But I foresee, Gretzky said, skate where the puck's going to be, not where the puck is at. Famously. Yeah. We see the market. EVs are going to be coming onto the market. You've got, companies like Porsche saying by 2030 they will not have a single gas car on their showrooms. It'll all be electric or hybrid electric. Some people say that's probably not going to happen, but that could happen. So we see in the next 5 years, gas collectible cars are going to start going up and up and up in value, because there's eventually it's going to happen. There's going to be a lot more electrical vehicles on the road and in dealerships, and that's just going to drive up the price of the collectibles. So we do see that increasing. We also see, because they are appreciable assets, that people are going to be investing in them to hold on to them and make money down the road.
Or is it better? So I see vintage cars. Okay, I'm a vintage American car kind of guy.
Yeah.
Is it better to have a stock original car or something modified? I see a lot of 41 a Willys Coupe, let's say, with a 454 LS6 motor and a 671 blower sticking out of the hood. Are those cars really worth anything, or is it more the originals?
Well, I got a good answer for you now. That has all changed in the last few years. When I was at Bear Jackson this year, retros were going for the most money. And so, retros have become very hot, but that doesn't take away from the stability of a matchings number,
right,
with the pedigree and the history, and that's never going to go away. But like we were saying here already, the market's going to go up, the market's going to go down, and trends are going to change. And the trend is changing a little bit towards retros, but it's a small piece, maybe 5-7% of the market. It's not a big change. If you look at Ring of Trailer, 60% of their auctions are Porsches. So it goes.
Wow.
So 60% of Porsches. The next level goes to Chevys, then it goes to Fords, then it goes to BMW, and then Mercedes. Those are the top collectible brands that are out there. So if you got a Saab, like you talked about earlier, some of those models are collected. If they are low number productions, there's people out there that do collect them, but it's just a very small niche. for the overall market. And, you don't want to focus on those smaller niches. You want them, but they're not a big core part of your business.
Interesting. And like I was saying before, when I look at a place like Marketplace and I see somebody throws it up for $75,000, and then you look 3 weeks later in that same car, the number slashed, and now they're asking $60,000 for it.
Well, they've got educated on what the value is. That's what's happened. And
I think they call that humbled.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, when you do buy a car on Marketplace, you don't know what you're getting.
No idea.
Yeah, especially if you live, across the country and you got to have it shipped. You don't see it for 3 weeks, and when you get it, it's not what you think, and then you call the seller and he doesn't pick up his phone, and you're stuck. Buyer beware. That's what I say. And on our platform, we're going to take very good care of making sure we curate the right cars, describe them the right way, so when they do get delivered, the buyer gets what they expect.
And the other thing too about a place like Marketplace, I've heard, and I've not heard, I've read actual police stories where people are washing titles between states, so you don't necessarily know that you're getting a car that might not have a lien on it.
Yes.
And that's I think a level of comfort that an auction offers that you're not going to find just going out on your own.
And if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. And if it doesn't feel right, you go by your gut. It doesn't feel right, don't buy it. A lot of times it's too good to be true. They've had a thing with Lamborghinis. There's a perfect example. Do you know that Lamborghinis, you can turn the odometer, right? You can stop it. So people can have 4,000 miles on Lamborghini, put 20,000 miles on it. But what they don't know is when you take it to a dealership, certified dealership, they have a computer that can go into the transmission, and the transmission tells them the actual miles on the vehicle. And there's been some claims that almost 50% of the Lamborghinis out there have had that happen to them. They've driven them an extra 10,000, and then when a dealership gets them and actually checks the tranny odo, it's not the same, not matching.
And that's a very expensive mistake or misrepresentation. I mean, we're talking legal filings here, legal claims.
If you're looking to buy a Lambo, make sure you take it to a dealer, have them check the transmission odometer, not the actual dashboard odometer.
Wow, that's crazy. People are still doing that today.
Well, they think they're getting away with it, and they are.
Michael says there's a place for both. The modified have trended higher in purchase trends.
Yeah, the retros are definitely the hot subject at the auctions currently, but you're never going to substitute a rare matching number 60s Camaro, low productions. That's
window
original, and it's got the pedigree. I mean, everybody wants those. Where the retro, it's just people want them emotionally, and that's where the value is. The value, a lot of times the retro guys say, "Well, I got $300,000 in the car." He might get $250,000 for it.
Right.
You emotionally put $300,000 in it. But if somebody really likes that vehicle, they might go for $350,000. That's what happened, the last couple of years is retros have been put into live auctions and gone for crazy amounts of money, just based on emotions and what people think they want.
And just like anything else, we don't have a crystal ball. So,
a good deal is the deal the buyer's happy with. That's a good deal. As long as the buyer's happy, that's in the end, that's really what matters.
Well, Mike, this has been extremely enlightening. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, everybody, for participating.
Look forward to when you guys officially launch.
Yes.
That should be very exciting.
Yeah, and follow Movarna on LinkedIn, everybody, please.
I've tagged Movarna in the LinkedIn announcement, so they just have to click on it and then click follow. And if we're not connected, whoever watches this, by all means, if it's relevant to both of us, I'd love to connect. And I don't know how you feel about it, Mike, but
Yes.
that's what I put out there.
We'll have some very, very big ERs here pretty soon, the coming months.
Excellent. Well, thank you for watching, those that watch live, and thank you to those that are going to watch it on the replay. I hope you got something out of this. I know I did. Really cool stuff. Mike, thanks again.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Have a safe and successful next week, and we'll see you next week on Sunday Night Live.
Thank you so much.